I forgot lip sync. Recap. 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 Welcome to the Social Media Recap Show, brought to you by the Geeks at Blogging. Social Media Recap is a weekly look back at the changes in social media platforms, apps, and marketing. Recap. Hello, I'm Jodi Jahrling. It says it right down there. Just look a little farther. Yeah, down there somewhere. And last week I was all by myself, and I'm happy to report that this week I have a special guest. Say hello, special guest.
Hello, Jodi. Thanks for having me.
And as you can read on his, it only will show your name tag once you start talking. But Jason Odell is joining me today. He is a photographer by trade. I know lots of us like to pretend we're photographers, but he's a real one. And he's going to be interjecting, hopefully, giving us some ways that he uses social media for his business. Where can they find stuff on you, Jason?
The easiest thing is hopefully that little thing that's like says right here. Do my best Vanna White impression. www.luminescentphoto.com. That's my website. Jason P. Odell Photography. You can Google me, Google Plus me. Just don't call me late for dinner.
And how long have you been a photographer?
I have been doing professional photography since about 2006, and I made it full time in 2010. I have been taking pictures forever, so.
So full time. So you don't do weddings. You don't do stuff like that, right?
No, I've focused predominantly on outdoor. I started mostly doing nature photography, wildlife photography, landscape photography. I'm moving more into creative, urban, and different techniques, all kinds of stuff. Jack of all trade, master of none, as the old saying goes. Wedding photography isn't my bag. It's not my thing. That's a different business altogether.
Well, I actually found you on Google Plus. That's how we met. And things I noticed right away, which you didn't mention, is you have a podcast that you do, I guess not on a regular basis, but as new things come up, right?
Yes, that's correct. I used to be the host of a Nikonians podcast, a co-host. A colleague of mine, Rick Walker, and I did that for almost 6 years, and then we had to retire it. So at the beginning of this year, in January, I said I'm going to try to do this. But as you know, it's hard to do them by yourself, so it's always good to get guests on the podcast. But I do have a podcast. It's published out on my blog. I'm still working through that. And what else did you find about me?
Online classes, right?
Yes, I do. I do a lot of educational software-based training. So a lot of webinar-style classes where people can ask questions live, view my screen. I do live screen captures to train people on things like Photoshop, Lightroom, Nick, the Google plus the Nick collection from Google, all of those things. I've written a lot of ebooks on that content as well.
And the other cool thing that totally makes me envious of what you do is you do excursions too. So like Las Vegas is your next one?
That's right. Started doing workshops on a real limited basis. I started doing more of those obviously when I went full time. So I've kind of got two different types of photo trips. One which I would call sort of your classic photo safari, which is a multi-day, 4 or 5 day trip to some cool place. And every year I go to Badlands National Park. I typically go to South Texas for bird photography, so we sit in blinds and do that. And then I started another sort of branch offshoot of this, a series of what would call instructional photo tours, which are over a long weekend kind of trips, and that's the Las Vegas trip. And these are part of a workshop series that I started with in collaboration with another photographer, colleague of mine, Deborah Sandage, and we call it the Digital Underground.
Ooh, fancy.
That's yeah, and that's out there. And on those tours, those are more of urban photography. We do a lot of twilight shooting, and we focus on looking at popular destinations from a more creative standpoint. So I met Deborah. She wrote a book on infrared photography, and she was actually a guest on my podcast once upon a time. And so we kind of joined up forces. We do infrared photography, we do long exposures, we do black and white, HDR, all kinds of different stuff in a various urban settings, and we try to arrange some cool side trips along the way. So you're correct. Las Vegas is coming up at the end of October.
And then
And
you're going to be in San Antonio for my birthday, which I'm from San Antonio. Jealous again.
yeah, and that one just sold out, so there's no more spots available on the San Antonio trip. That's going to be it's going to be really fun. We're going to go to it's more than just the Alamo, as you know. There's the Riverwalk area, the Cathedral, the Bear County Courthouse, and then all of the missions. There's the chain of missions that cruises down through Santa, and I'm sure you've been to most of them, but the one fun one is the mission, I believe it's San Juan or San Jose, one of those. I think it's San Juan. It's the big one. It's got walls around it, and you can't. It has this little annoying little. You can go in there, you can take pictures, you can bring tripods, you can do whatever you want, but it closes at 5 o'clock, which is right when, depending on the time of year, that's right about when sunset starts. So we've got a special permit through the National Park Service to have after-hours access in there for another couple hours, so that as it's getting dark and we get that lovely blue hour light, we'll be taking lots of pictures and uploading them to our various social media accounts on the fly.
Very, very cool. And we'll talk a little bit about how you use social media to kind of get the word out about all the different things you do. However, I need to get into the meat of what we're doing today. Every week I give an update on the changes in social media and applications. And so we're just going to get right into it, Jason.
Okay, you go. Rock on.
Facebook is our first because it's normally has the most changes ever. And of course, this week is no different. I've noticed with clients this week, so let me talk about how we help engagement with our clients through Facebook. So at least once a week, we'll go in there as the brand and we'll comment and like on other brand pages. We'll also take that opportunity to possibly share some of other people's content, which if you aren't doing that is a really good strategy to increase your engagement, because if you show people love, they're going to show you love back. So this week we've noticed that if you've been commenting on other business pages as your business page, those comments are showing up on your wall. So just be cognizant of what you're saying and who you're saying it to, because your fans could possibly see who you're interacting with. Could be a good thing, but you may need to edit yourself.
So I have a question then.
Okay.
So, because I have a Facebook business page that I use, and you can't tag people. They got really annoyed with tagging people in pictures, and it seems that when I try to make a post, the only thing I can really tag or comment on is other business pages. Is that correct?
Yes, you can trick it though by being on your brand page as your person. Make sure it's toggled to your photography page, but if you're in there as your person and you're not in there as strictly your business, then it'll let you tag other businesses that you're not associated with as your person.
Right. Because a lot of photographers, and this is just one of those things about Facebook, a lot of photographers just use their personal page as their brand because it's them. And for reasons that are complicated, I don't do that. I don't want to do that. Facebook is a a thing of its own, and so I try to keep my personal stuff on my personal page. But as a result, it's harder to interact with things from my business page because it doesn't operate in quite the same viral nature, if you will. So it's just been a challenge. And of course, as you say, the rules seem to change every week.
And we happen to be Facebook friends, so you actually took a good strategy with posting the content on your business page and then sharing it to your personal page so that you're not overly annoying on your personal page, always just posting photography stuff. That would be what I would suggest for any brand, especially if your brand is your name, like in your case.
Right.
You would definitely want to continue doing that. That's a good strategy because you are your brand. So people are going to be curious um, as on your personal page what you're doing in your professional life. It also reminds them if they haven't liked your business page yet that they need to take that opportunity.
True. Yep.
What other changes? Oh, retargeting with Instagram. So, and we're going to answer this question a little bit later, but if you don't have Instagram, you might consider getting it now and starting to add some content to it. Right now, Facebook is testing retargeting with Instagram. And if you didn't know, Facebook does own Instagram. Um, I have a link to the article on the Mobloggy blog. It's mobloggy.com/blog. Just being tested once again with big brands like BMW. But what they're looking at is if you saw sponsored content on Instagram and you go to Facebook, they're going to retarget you, retarget those people that saw the ad on Instagram. So retargeting. What else is new? A CTA button, a call to action button if you upload videos to Facebook. This just popped up out of nowhere. I didn't read anything on it. I just noticed it. But you can have a call to action button on any videos you upload to Facebook. They have shop now, book now, learn more, sign up, download, and watch more. It doesn't cost you anything right now, so I would highly recommend using it because my guess is Facebook is going to eventually monetize it. So take advantage of that now. Last thing on Facebook is campaign structures. So last March, they said that they were going to be moving to a different Power Editor structure. So if you're somebody who likes to run targeted ads on Facebook using your Power Editor, that structure may start to look different for you. They've actually made it much easier to use, where you have an overall campaign structure. It goes into a ad layer, and then you have a design layer. Those three things are going to be awesome. If you don't have them yet, don't worry. It will be fully launched by September. Do you run ads, Jason?
Um, Sometimes I've tried a few. I've tried a few. Their click-through cost ends up being about $5 a click, and that's just poor value for me. So I'm still experimenting with that. Um, every now and then you got to throw things out there. I've done Google AdWords. That's worked for me in the past as well, for stuff. Most of my advertising though is sort of indirect, informal, either social media posts or even just educational content that I post in my blog directly on my website by having information there. Because I find that at least in the photography world, what people are looking for is free advice, information, how do I do this? And so I try to find a balance between premium content, which is paid content in my say my books, versus tips and tricks and things in my blog. So those become advertisements in a certain kind of way.
Yes, free is always awesome. um, Speaking of free, Twitter is still free, but they are working really hard to earn your dollars, and they just announced that they'll be having promoted video being tested. So just like you would promote a particular tweet, they're going to allow you to promote video to where it will autoplay in the feed, no sound unless it's clicked, and you actually won't get charged unless it's actually clicked. So initially out of the gate, it could be a great way to get your content noticed. Impressions speak volumes even if people don't click through, so that's something to consider. Along Twitter lines too doesn't apply to the majority of us, but something worth mentioning. Celebrity Twitter streams, they have their own now. So if you see a green verified check mark on a Twitter account, they're actually Twitter has made it easier for them to interact with each other. So I guess if Ellen DeGeneres wants to tweet Brad Pitt, they could have their own little personal stream without being bothered by us peons who tend to tweet them from time to time. I don't even. Is that a goal for you, Jason, to be a verified account?
I don't know what it takes to be a verified account. I don't think that'll happen on Twitter anytime soon because I mean, I'm I don't know, I'm certifiable, but I don't know about if I'm verifiable. I would hope that at some point, Google would verify my account, but they don't, you know, they made a whole big stink once upon a time of making sure that you were really you. And so you had to use your real name and all this stuff. And okay, so I did, but what does that mean? And I've given them my website, and it's verified that, and whatever other piece of information they want. Maybe I haven't had the microchip implanted in my skull yet. I,
Yet.
I don't know. I mean, maybe that's it. I need a chip, an RFID tag or something.
Last update in our platforms, and it's actually been a quiet week. Pinterest announced that they had a quick profile image update. So if you're used to your logo being in a square, or you had a special photo for that square image, it is now round. So heads up, go to your Pinterest account if you have one, and make sure your new round profile image is fitting. Are you on Pinterest, Jason?
Not yet. I haven't figured out. I don't have enough recipes to post to it.
We'll have to have a discussion about that. You should
I
be.
get these emails all the time saying, "Here are the next top recipes on Pinterest." So apparently, it's good for posting recipes. Uh, I got to work on it.
There's a manly Pinterest podcast that I follow. I'll be sure to send you that link.
Okay.
Now we're going to go into app updates, and actually not a whole lot going on with this. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter just had minor improvements. Paper, which I mentioned last week, it's the Facebook application that kind of makes Facebook look like a magazine through that app. Have you tried Paper out, Jason?
I haven't because the paper that I have is a drawing app for the iPad, which so then I heard that there was a kerfuffle about some trademark infringement over that because there's this app called Paper that is great. It like does watercolors and drawing and all kinds of fun things. But
I'm pretty sure Facebook won that battle.
well, he with the most money wins, right?
Well, Paper had a bunch of updates, and I was just making fun of it last week. You can do a lot more things in it now, like you would through the Facebook app, editing your profile and cover images, adding photo tags, mentions, looking at trending, hashtags. One cool thing that the Facebook app currently doesn't do, at least my version doesn't, is that you're able to copy text from posts in Paper. So that could be helpful, especially if you're reusing that information somewhere else. Um, you can change your audience like you would on Facebook, whether it's just to your friends or public posting. And they claimed, I need to test this out, that they've increased their performance and speed. Yelp had another update, review translation, which I actually think is really cool. So if somebody did a review in Spanish, they now have a nice handy button that will let you sort of understand what they were trying to say if you don't know Spanish. Cleaner sharing toggles and smoother video playback. Not last episode, but the one before that, we mentioned that Yelp now has video capabilities, which I think will be interesting. I'm going to have to go wander over there and see what interesting videos have occurred. But they have evidently smoothed out that video playback option. Are you a Yelper?
I have it. I find restaurants with it on occasion.
Do you ever review on it?
I haven't. But then none of the restaurants down here where I live are worthy of reviews. They're all just chains. So when I find a good one, I'll let you know.
All
It's
right.
much more fun to use those programs when you're in, say, New York City, when it says, "Oh, look, there's 87 things around you. Which do you want?" Instead of when I click it and it says, "Oh, your choice is Wendy's."
Well, Foursquare app has actually made some major improvements across the board. They introduced a new app called Swarm, which lets you see where your friends are. So it's kind of an opportunity um, if you want to see what they're doing or if you want to get their opinion of what to do. They've added a few new features to Foursquare. Foursquare has been struggling. I think some of us use it as a check-in device without even realizing it. But you can, in the past, you've always been able to add tips, but now you can add your tastes to it. So say you love seafood and cupcakes, well, obviously not together. Um,
Easy there. Now you're going into a dangerous territory.
Seafood cupcakes and teddy bears. I don't know. Foursquare application actually will start to give you advice on places to go based on the tastes that you've plugged in there. So Foursquare is trying to up the ante by being a lot more social. And I would recommend making sure that if you do have a brick and mortar business, that you have the capability of letting people check in on Foursquare, because Instagram uses Foursquare, and that has been a huge application. My understanding is Yelp integrates with Foursquare as far as check-ins go. The big thing about this is now they have made tips to where if you are on Foursquare and have that application on your device, if you are anywhere near a location that has a tip, it'll actually do a pop-up by default on your phone. You can turn this off. But once again, it gives a business an opportunity to be seen by somebody who isn't necessarily looking for them at the moment. For example, our headquarters office is located in a little mountain town called Minturn, and there's a barbecue place there. Every time I drive by that barbecue place, the tip pops up about trying their jalapeno cheese. What's that? Cheese in the noodles. What's that called?
Noodles?
Macaroni and cheese.
Oh, that.
You have a kid. You're supposed to know these things.
Yeah, let me put it this way. We won't put jalapenos anywhere near his macaroni and cheese. That would be a tip to say, let's not go here.
But how clever is it for that business to pop up and lo and behold, I might be hungry while I'm driving by. So just wanted to bring up Foursquare. They've been doing a lot of things in regards to the social realm, and it's a great marketing tool if you don't have your business already on it. So into the question of the week. Speaking of businesses that aren't on everything, the question of the week is, does Instagram fit every business? Jason?
I guess if you like square crops.
So there are actually a lot of photographers on Instagram, but I think it's important to note what type of photographers are on Instagram. They're normally the wedding photographers or the portrait photographers. Um, there are occasionally landscape type photographers, but I think, especially how you do things, Jason, everything is a lot of link based things, and Instagram doesn't let you add links to images. It's strictly the image, text, and making it mega searchable with hashtags. So the short answer to this is, does Instagram fit every business? No. And would you agree, Jason?
I would have to agree. I mean, I've seen a lot of cool stuff posted to Instagram. I know it's a lot of people who like to, it's a lot of cell phone pictures, it's a lot of filters, a lot of effects. But at the same time, if I'm browsing through my Twitter feed and someone's posted a picture from Instagram, all I get is a link, which means now I got to click that link and go to Instagram. It's an extra step. I'd rather see that picture in my Twitter feed. Just saying.
Do you feel like it's time that's kept you from doing Instagram, or you just don't?
No, I'm just a snob, and I think no. It's the I think when it came out, there was a lot of, there's a million social media platforms. I can't keep track of all of them. Otherwise, at some point, you just get consumed by everything. And I think when I saw it, for whatever reason, it was more of people taking pictures of cats and food than it was, serious things. And it's yet another outlet to put pictures on, and that's good. I mean, I like that. But at some point, I try to focus things back to eventually, my goal, and I don't know if, and maybe Instagram is fine with this. Like I said, I just haven't had the time and effort, chasing a 5-year-old, 6-year-old around. But eventually I want people to filter back to my website, my blog, my website, see that I do educational content. So things that connect, that's great. But I mean, it's why even Twitter. I mean, there's links, but Twitter to me is like, it's like shouting out into a vacuum. And maybe somebody hears it, and maybe they don't. It doesn't have that persistence, even though it's there. I mean, it doesn't have the same persistence that something like your Facebook page or your Google Plus page might have. I have a 500 pix account, a 500 px account. It's where I do my, and they're not exactly social, but they're trying to, they have a little bit of interaction on things. So I don't know. It's just maybe it's not any prejudice I have towards Instagram. It's more of just bandwidth on my own side, because I only have so many hours in a day, and social media consumes plenty of them just between the platforms that I'm using.
No, completely valid and makes total sense. What I would recommend if you are considering using Instagram, never used it before, is if you have a product or service that you could offer, almost kind of making it a gallery of sorts. There's some funny Instagram accounts out there. One of them is a goat herder, and he actually publishes pictures of his goats on his Instagram account that are available for sale. So there can be some creative ways of using Instagram to help promote your business. You are limited to the one link that's on your profile page, and more so than anything else, you're limited by the amount of time you have. Instagram is used, people will find your Instagram post, obviously, if they follow your account, but it is mainly driven by hashtags. And Jason made a great point as far as lifestyle and personalities that are on Instagram. It's not business related. You won't see as many memes as you would on Facebook or Google Plus. It's definitely, if a brand is publishing on there, most likely it's to give you a behind the scenes look of what's going on. And that can be time consuming to share at that level. So does Instagram fit every business? Absolutely not. Is it a great outlet to continue to get your word out about your products and services? If you have the time, absolutely. You're able to share to Facebook, Twitter. If you have a Tumblr account, you can share from your Instagram account. That might help you save some time, but if you're already religiously posting to Facebook and Google Plus and Twitter, I believe you can actually skip Instagram. So you're safe, Jason. So last but not least, we're going to lead into a tip. In fact, looking through Instagram, another digital agency had a picture of a donut, and it said, and I don't know how the donut related, but it did catch my attention. It said only 19% of brands tweet on the weekends. So there's the tip. Be that 19% of brands that tweet on the weekends. There are so many opportunities to schedule. So on Facebook, if you're feeding your Facebook status updates to Twitter, you can schedule Facebook posts via Facebook. If you don't do that, if you're strictly Twitter directly putting into there, Hootsuite, which I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of that. It's actually free out of the gate until you start adding a bunch of accounts to it, and that will also allow you to schedule on the weekends. Are you a religious weekend poster, Jason?
It's interesting. I do a lot of stuff on weekends primarily because, and I've always believed, one, probably my most powerful marketing tool outside of social media is direct email communication with my customers who signed up to be part of my monthly newsletter. I got a little sign up button on my website. You can subscribe to this, so I give out tips just like you're doing on the podcast. Sometimes I'll send this out with information on products, but also just what's been going on, and I always try to sprinkle in information, and those always do better when I schedule them for Saturday morning, for example. And part of the reason is because a lot of the customers that I have are people who have day jobs, and they get out and their weekend, they're not professional photographers, they're hobbyists, they're enthusiasts, and they want to learn these things. And so, when are they reading a cup of coffee, they're when are they going through and have the time to do their browsing of either their email or their social media? It's in the morning, on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, when they're having their cup of coffee and taking it easy. They're not going to work. Maybe they're not checking work email. They don't feel like they're, some companies won't let you log into a social media site. They might have them blocked behind a firewall depending on where you work, right? So getting people when they're more likely to be at home and in a relaxed state, I believe doing that.
Yeah, and it definitely speaks volumes to who is your target market. So in your case, it's hobbyists that are trying to get better at their photography skills. So you're right. Evenings and weekends, the majority of us have an 8 to 5 type job. So definitely posting on the weekends. In general, you're going to get higher engagement, but do take a look at who your target market is as a brand. And if you are uh, marketing more business to business, maybe the weekend targeting isn't ideal for you. But I wholeheartedly say schedule when you can, because it'll save you time in the long run. Hey, Jason,
Yes, Jody.
we are done for today, but I didn't want to leave without talking about how you market your photography things. Is it primarily Google Plus? You said email marketing was huge for you, but as far as social platforms go, where do you find your energy is best spent?
Um, well, that's the interesting thing. I have Twitter, Google Plus, and Facebook, and all of those are a different audience. So in terms of the sheer number of followers that I have, I would say my Google Plus audience is the biggest. Now I don't know how many of those are legitimate accounts or what. They could be just people's cats that have signed up for a Google Plus account or whatever, and I don't know. Um, what I find as a photographer is that any platform that lets me have a nice photograph to go with the link or whatever works. And while Facebook is probably the most popular platform, it doesn't do the best for actually showcasing images. I like to call uploading a Facebook, I like to refer to it as sending it to the Facebook image mangler, because it just destroys, it compresses your images beyond the way you save them, sometimes to the point where you really lose some of the quality. Now, I obviously put the pictures there because that works, and there are people who there's a huge number of people on my Facebook groups, or that interaction, who know nothing about Google Plus. They don't know how to use it. They don't, so they're never going to go there, and they don't go there because it isn't Facebook, and so that's fine. I mean, so I have that business page and some groups that I've participated with that I can share things to, and then Google Plus, I'll share. I have a business page there, but that was something that in the infancy of Google, I wasn't sure how they were going to really roll those out. So I have both. What I like about Google, though, is that when I do upload an image, the quality of that image is really nice. If I upload a higher resolution image, you can zoom in and see it at the full resolution at which I uploaded it to, which is nicer from a sharing standpoint. So, but as far as like which one is the best, I mean, it's really tough to say, because um, I don't have necessarily the data points for you know who's clicking from where. So I try to hit them all three as much as possible, at least when I'm getting things. And I find that once I get a client to purchase one of my books, like my ebook guide to Lightroom, for example, then they see the other stuff. Then they start coming back in, and so that's where the blog and the other content and the email marketing. Then I try to make them into repeat customers. Um, that's kind of how I do it.
And I've noticed how you do things on each of those platforms, and it is really driven by showing them the type of images that you're able to produce. So then when you are letting people know about the various next online classes that you offer or the next excursion that you're going on, that they realize you know what you're talking about, or you know what you're doing.
I hope so.
And I do have a copy of your book, so I would definitely recommend everyone go to Jason's website. What is it again, Jason?
Um, www.luminescentphoto.com, and or just Google Jason P. Odell. It'll be the first hit.
Oh, it must have the P in there.
That'll get it every time. If you put my middle initial in, it'll nail it. I go right to the top of the list. But even not, I'm usually on the first 2 or 3 hits from a Google search.
Once again, luminescentphoto.com. You'll see Jason P for photographer.
That's right.
Odell out there. Jason, thank you so much for joining me. I hate doing these things by myself, and it just makes it so much better when I don't feel like I'm talking to myself.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, Jody. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
All the show notes are available at mobloggy.com/blog. We're on Twitter and Google Plus and YouTube and Facebook, all under /mobloggy. I am Jodi Jahrling, your host. I'm here every week, Friday afternoons at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, giving you the updates from the week in social media. I hope you'll tune in next week.